All right, this is a a pamphlet, a book which was given out by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, talking about the importance of this building 770. That's the central headquarters of Chabad in the world. And the central headquarters of Chabad in the world. And the Rebbe is talking about the importance of this. Now, let's just go put everything in a proper perspective over here. As we've done so many times, how important are the Jewish people, right? We see that the Jewish people just don't go away, right? And they've got all these enemies, and nobody can really explain why they have these enemies. Why people just hate the Jews. Why? What's going on? I mean, all the reasons that are given really don't hold much water to them. I mean, they're not really, there's a Jewish plot to take over the world, and Jewish. I mean, these things are just basically ridiculous. It's totally, and even so, at least uncover the plot, kill the people who are in the plot. No, everybody's in the plot. All the Jewish people, they're all part of this plot. Every Jew, they look like normal people. They don't know what you're talking about. They're talking about because they're all covering it up. They're really part of the plot. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And they all have the money. I know there's all these reasons and things like that. You read the books of Hitler and Mein Kampf. There'd be inside of every the evil thing. There's a Jew and a Jew. Good, so you want to find one Jew, two Jews. I don't know, even if that's true. But all the Jews of it. So the fact of the matter is, the Jews are God's representatives. They're God's representatives, and there's only one God. He creates the world. There's only one creation. That's the world. Even if you want to see there's other planets or other dimensions, they're all being created by God. And every human being is being created by God. And when people realize this, then the world will run smoothly. The world will run smoothly. Okay, and in the Torah, there are also what's called the commandments, the 7 commandments of Noahide commandments, which these are universal commandments, which basically are the only commands that come directly from God to all mankind, the Creator's instructions. That's it. There's a lot of religions that were made by inspired people, but God did not talk to everybody. God spoke to everyone, right? One person comes out from the desert or from a mountain and someone says, this is the truth. So, okay, everybody believes him why? Because everybody believes him, right? As soon as a certain critical mass of people start to believe, then people just are going together like the sky is falling, But Judaism, God spoke to 2-3 million people. They all heard it, right? 600,000 just men from the ages of 20 up, and they all heard it. Everyone heard God speaking. And this has been passed down from generation to generation. So this is the only singular the directions for the world, right? Only directions in the world are, and those religions that claim that they take the place of Judaism, right? They have all sorts of loopholes and things like that. They can do whatever they want to, basically. So the Torah is the only real blueprint for the world. So the Jewish people, they're as small as they are, and as few as they are, they have it. And among the Jews, there's not that many Jews that really believe in this. And even the ones that believe in it, there's not that many that actually take it seriously. And they actually implement this in their day-to-day life. So that's the idea of the Jewish people. And that's the idea, to put meaning in the world. And that's the idea of Chabad, is to wake up the Jewish people. Wake up all the Jews. The center of Chabad is in this building called 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, New York. And from there, all of these shluchim go all over the world to wake Jews up. There's nothing like it in the world, nothing even vaguely like it. Nothing like it. To go to these, who knows, what do they call them, God-forsaken places, and to say that they're not forsaken. Exactly the opposite. And they arouse Judaism there, they arouse Jews, and they benefit the whole place, benefit the places. And thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews have been brought to Jewish awareness by these Chabad shluchim. despite all the enemies and the enemies within and the enemies without and the other. So there's a sentence that says, there's a Gemara, a Talmud in Megillah, Chavtes, and it talks about this. And it says that there's a place called, now that there's no holy temple, so there's like a holy temple outside of Israel. The Jews always have one central place from which comes Torah to all the Jewish people. And that's called Beit Rabbeinu Shebabavel. There's one synagogue that from this synagogue, learning and inspiration and Judaism comes to the whole world, not just to the religious Jews, to all the Jews in the world. Okay, so now the Rebbe is talking about, on the pasuk it says, hey, Lahem mikdash me'at, I will be for them. This is a sentence in where? In Jeremiah. Let's see where it says. Yechezkel, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Yechezkel, Ezekiel, a sentence in Ezekiel. God says, I will be to them mikdash me'at, a small holy temple, ba'artzot, in the lands asher bo'usham, where they go. Shegam chutzlords, that also outside of Israel, where the Jews have been living in exile for like 2,000 years almost, ba'artzot asher bo'ulam, the makom ubizman, in the time of the exile. Right now, what do we believe? What is this exile? We believe Moshiach is going to cause the third temple to come from heaven, and it will draw all of the Jews from all the world to the Holy Land. Why? Because the Holy Temple is the only place that you can do all the commandments, and all of the Jews in the world will want to do all the commandments, and that's the only way they can do it. And that'll draw them. The temple will draw them to Israel to do the commandments. But meanwhile, while they are outside of Israel, they have what's called a mikdash me'at, a small temple, me'ain v'dugmas, a mikdash agadol, something like the third temple, which is in Jerusalem, which will be in Jerusalem, and the first and the second ones that were in Jerusalem. Tanya, and it will be secondary to the holy temple. Ita b'Gemara, it says in the Gemara, Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, he explains the sentence in Ezekiel, says Rabbi Yitzchak, Elu Beit Knesset, the Beit Midrashes, these are the places of prayer and the places of learning, which are in Bavel. Bavel, after the first temple was destroyed. Even though these rabbis were not talking, they were talking about the time of the second temple. Rabbi Eliezer or Omar, Zeh Beit Rabbeinu Shebabavel. This is one, Rabbi Eliezer said, this is one central synagogue which is in Bavel. Bavel is a general name for Jewish people, for exile, wherever the Jews are. We could say that Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Eliezer, lo pli, they're not arguing. I know there's Rabbi Eliezer, that also, even according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that all of the synagogues are called mikdash me'at, they're all called a small temple. And according to Rabbi Yitzchak, the main completion and, manifestation of this small temple that's going to be in the time of exile is Beit Rabbeinu. So they both agree the same thing. Both of them agree that every synagogue is called a small temple, small holy temple, but there's going to be one that's going to be the main one. That's the real comparison to the holy temple in Jerusalem. That's why it's called Beit Rabbeinu, the house of our rabbi. Why the house of our rabbi? Say the house of the Jews. This is like it says, why Rabbeinu? Why a rabbi? Because it teaches Torah. The Talmud was a rabbi. A rabbi is a person that teaches Torah to his pupils. Beit Rabbeinu. Abayit Shabo Malamed Rabbeinu Torah LeTalmidot. That's the place where Rabbeinu, where the teacher teaches Torah to his pupils. This is a Beit Midrash, what they call a place of learning Torah. Ubamela Ariyugam Beit Knesset. So therefore, it's also a place of prayer. Beit Knesset means a house of gathering, people where they gather for prayer. Because for prayer, you're supposed to pray in a group. In Judaism, you're supposed to pray in a group of 10, if you can. More the better. But the prayer, if you can't pray with 10 people, you can pray alone. But the best way to pray is what's called a minyan, 10 people. Okay, even since the limud with tefillah, since the prayer, learning Torah, and prayer has to be in one place. That's what it says, it's the best. So therefore, this is a place, Beit Rabbeinu Sheba Bavel, this is one central synagogue where Torah and prayer is centered for the whole world. Like it says, Have Gersinen Bebei Kanishta. You could say that this is the places where they would learn is in a place of prayer. And also, conversely, the place where people pray is the place where they learn. Well, Maili Yatera, there's another advantage to this place called a Beit Knesset and Beit Midrash. And Beit Rabbeinu, why it's called Beit Rabbeinu, the house of a rabbi. Lagabi Shar Beit Knesset, regarding all the other places of learning, like the rabbis say, what does it say? Ohev Hashem, Sharitzion, Mikol Mishkanot Yaakov. It says God loves the gates of Zion from all of the other places where the Jews live. Ohev Hashem is Shari Mitzuyani Balacha. It says, what does it mean? Shari Tzion. The Shari mean the gates which are ornamented with law. Yoter mi Beit Knesset or Beit Midrashos, more than any of the other places of prayer and learning. What does this mean? From the time that the Holy Temple was destroyed, God does not have ba'olamo in his world, only where there is law, the law of the Torah. Now, we can't underestimate, we can't, how do you say, undervalue the importance of the Torah. The Torah is not just a religious book for the Jews. The Torah is much, much more than that. Let's begin with the fact that the Torah is the blueprint for the creation of the world. The Torah is the blueprint of the creation of the world. The world was created for the Jews to learn it. Learning Torah, that's what all these yeshivas are. Cost billions and billions of dollars to keep these yeshivas going. And they feed the boys that are learning there. And they, so you can say, what do you have to have that? What do you have to have these places for? Let everybody go out and work. So that is work. That's the work that's really keeping the world going. But it's very, very undervalued. People don't appreciate the tremendous importance and blessing that the world gets from everyone learning Torah, when Torah is learned. But not everyone, even anyone learning Torah. That's what it says. And since the Holy Temple was destroyed, the Holy Temple used to be the source of all prosperity, etc. in the world. When the Beis Hamikdash, when the Holy Temple was destroyed, so now it says, where does God shine through the world? It says, Arba Amos means in the area whenever Torah is learned. The time when the Torah, when the Holy Temple existed, Hayasham Lishkat Gazit. There was a place called the Lishkat Gazit, that there was the Sanhedrin, and they would decide all the laws. There were laws, all the laws would come because of the Sanhedrin. And with it, Vada Shechina Shoi, and certainly that was where God's presence was found. That was in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, of the Holy Temple. And now that the Holy Temple was destroyed, and in the part of the Holy Temple was the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was in one part of the Holy Temple, the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was 71 great genius men. All of them had the power to raise the dead. And they were the ones that decided the laws of the Judaism. Now that the Holy Temple is destroyed, Otan Dalet Amos Shalacha, this area, wherever Torah is learned, Makom kavua, it's a set place. Shemimena yotze hora. There comes out teaching to all of the city. And therefore, prayer should also be in this place where Torah is learned. That's the idea of Beit Rabbeinu. That's the idea of the house of our teacher outside of Israel. Because this special quality of a place where there is prayer and a place where there is learning Torah in this house of our teacher, in other words, this main synagogue, which is outside of Israel, the Gabi Shark based the Knesset of Beit Midrash Shabbavel, in regard to the others, Harihu Mikdash Me'at. It is called a little holy temple. Ha'ikri. All synagogues are, but they're called genuine synagogues. We're not talking about Reform, conservative. Genuine synagogues, because they keep all the Torah and they pray to God. It's called a small temple. Ha'ikri. This is called the main small temple. Shenoten HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God gave to the Jewish people in the time of exile, to moor it in the place, temporarily in the place of Mikdash HaGadol B'Yushalayim, in the holy temple of Jerusalem. So what's the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe is saying over here that when there was a holy temple in Israel, the holy temple was the source of Torah learning. And it was the source of law. And it was the source of prayer. And it was the proof that God exists, and that God listens to our prayers, and that God cares about the world. That's why he gave the law to the world, the Torah. And there's a big commandment to learn the Torah and to teach the Torah. But now that the Holy Temple is destroyed, so what do we do now? Where do we do? So it says there's always a place outside of Israel. The Jews have been scattered outside of Israel. And that place is designed to strengthen Judaism, strengthen Torah, strengthen prayer, strengthen their awareness of God in all of the Jewish people, just like the Holy Temple did. Of course, that's not a replacement. It's just temporary. It's not really the same thing. But nevertheless, it's as close as we can get right now. Yeshla Virayo, we can bring a proof. The Chiluki Medregos, to these different levels of Mikdash Me'at, of this small temple, from what it says in the beginning, when God says he rests his presence in the Jewish people. Just give me one moment, please. I'll be right back. Just want to take a short break. So, says the Rebbe, there's promised to us that there will always be one central major place, synagogue, place of learning outside of Israel in the time of exile, that from there will come learning, Torah, inspiration, prayer, awareness of God, awareness of Judaism, encouraging to do the Torah and the commandments. Outside of Israel, there will be one place. And that place is called the house of our teacher, Beit Rabbeinu, because it will teach Torah to everyone in the world and wake up the Jews. There has to be such a place, and this will be so that the temporary holy temple until the third one is built. We can bring a proof that there's these different levels of a small temple from what it says in the beginning over there in the Talmud, where it talks about God's presence resting in the Jewish people in time of exile. And it says over there like this: B'kol makom shegolu shechina iman. Every place the Jewish people went, God's presence is with them. Galu l'Mitzrayim, when the Jewish people were in Egypt, the Shekhinah was with them. Galu l'Bavel, when the Jewish people, the first temple was destroyed, they went to Babylon, the Shekhinah was with them. God's presence. Shekhinah means God's presence. But Babel says in the Gemara, Babel, where was it? Omer Abaya, the Bei Kanishta de Hutzal. Abaya said it was in the holy, in the synagogue, the great synagogue that was in the city of Hutzal, a place in Babylon. And also in the Bei Kanishta, the Shaf Visiv, in a place of Shav Visiv in Nardaya. That's what it said. But don't say Hacha, don't say it was in both places at the same time. Ella Zimni Nacha, sometimes it was here and sometimes it was there. The Chiddush, the novelty is that the Shekhinah is with them, even in exile. It comes to tell us that the revelation of God's presence in these special places, it was like in the tabernacle and in the temple. In this place, where is it now? The Beit HaKnesset, the Beit HaMidrashas. Of course, when there was a holy temple, and the people didn't go into all the rooms. There was a holy of holy. Only the high priest could go in once a year, and etc. And of course, in our synagogues, you can go into anywhere you want to. But nevertheless, the fact is that what is unique is in the holy temple there was prayer. Then there was also sacrifices, which is another form of prayer. And there was the Sanhedrin where there was Torah was learned. So it is now also the same thing. There is always going to be such a thing with the Jewish people. Just like the Jewish people cannot exist without the Torah, the Jewish people cannot exist without Moses, the Jewish people cannot exist without a holy temple. And there's always going to be a holy temple in the Jewish people, with the Jewish people, and it'll be outside of Israel, not permanent, only temporary. Shenikrim, it's called Mikdash Mat, it's called a small holy temple. That's how it's talked about in this topic that's discussed in the Gemara in the Talmud Megillah. So according to this, Yeshlom, we can say the Hemshech, that what this kid says in the continuation of the Talmud, where was it? It says, the Talmud asks, where was this holy special place in Babel? It was in the Beit Knesset of the Hutzel, and in the Beit Knesset of Dashaf, of the Shafin, etc. Yosef Nardai says these places, these special places. So it's talking about the revelation of God's presence in a way that was higher, higher than it was in any of the other synagogues, which were in Babylon. There was thousands of synagogues in Babylon. The Jewish people were there, they sat and they learned Torah. Nevertheless, there was one or two special places where the Shekhinah would be, and only one of these places at a time would be the place where God's presence would be revealed. It was a place in Nikar that it was recognizable that God's presence was there. And even more, there is a special place where it is it's like the replacement for the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, temporary replacement for the temple in Jerusalem. Makom asher yivchar Hashem, the place where God will be found. Shabo ikra shoresh of Gimel Shekhinah, that there is the main revelation of God's Shekhinah. Therefore, lo tema hacha ba'acha, don't say that God's presence was revealed in all of these synagogues or all of the big ones. No, sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. God's presence is revealed sometimes in one place and sometimes in another. So we see that there is always a special place. Excuse me 1 second. That's the special in the names of the places. The holy temple of Dashaf and Vyasiv ben Ardaya. What does it mean? Shaf, Vyasiv. Shaf means to move. The word shaf means shenasa, that it moved. The place of Migdash. Vyasiv means that it moved there. And it settled down there. Shaf in Aramaic means shaf miduchte, means it moved. And Yasiv means to be settled. Namely, the revelation of God's presence, which was in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem and nowhere else, it moved and it went to a special place in Babylon, in the place of the temple which was in Jerusalem. And for this is understood, in other words, where the majority of the Jewish people are, that's where this temple is. This, how do you say, substitute temple, when all the Jews come back to Israel, so they'll be because the temple will be here. When Mizem move, and it's understood, also in regard to Mikdash Me'at, the small temple, which is including the idea of the small temple, which is in every synagogue and every place of learning in Babylon. Every place where Jewish people genuinely pray to God and genuinely sit and learn Torah, that place is also called a small temple. But there's just one main one. There is a small temple, but there is the main small temple, small holy temple, in the place of the big holy temple in Jerusalem, Beit Rabbeinu Shabbat. And the Rebbe is going to say, and we're going to come back to this tomorrow, that this is the Chabad headquarters in Brooklyn, and that this is the holy temple outside of Israel that's going to try to influence all the Jews to return to their senses so that the real permanent Beit HaMikdash, the third one, will be built in Jerusalem. Shenasa Mikdash v'yashev sham, that the holy temple moved when the Jewish people were exiled, and the holy temple moved, and the Shekhinah was with the Jewish people wherever they go. And now the Rebbe says that this holy temple is 770 Eastern Parkway. That's the place. Proof. We'll learn about this next week. Now let's learn, tomorrow. Tomorrow. Let's learn the Yom Yom. We have three tools: love of God, love of the Torah, and love of the Jewish people. And with these three tools, students of the Torah should approach serving God, working on what's called the vineyard of Hashem. In Hebrew, it comes out better, Keren Hashem Tzavot. Namely what? That all the Jewish people are potentially like grapes filled with fine wine. We have to work in this vineyard to bring the hearts of all the Jewish people closer to observing, actually doing the commandments, and setting times for learning Torah. They have to do this without paying any attention to politics or different groups. The absolute truth is that the heart of the Jewish people, every Jew is a wellspring, a source of living waters. And there is an agreement. God made an agreement, a promise, that if you make effort and if you advertise, then there's always going to be results. We're trying to spread Judaism to all the Jews, wake up all the Jews. It seems impossible, says the Rebbe. Also, if you look at a dry piece of land, you'll never dream that would come out from this dry piece of land delicious grapes. You can squeeze the grapes, there's wine, makes you happy. It's just a piece of dirt. What's there? Absolutely nothing. You can't eat the dirt. There's no sweetness there. It won't get you happy to eat the dirt. But if you work on the dirt, miraculously grow up grapes, vine, a vineyard. You have to get rid of the weeds and things, but you have to work. If you do the work, then you're promised that there's going to be results. And here we're talking about the vineyard as the Jewish people. If you make effort and if you advertise, don't keep it to yourself, then for sure there will be fruits. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, see you today at 3 o'clock. We're continuing learning the Megillah, Megillah's Esther.